Senator from North Dakota.
Are we in a quorum call?
We are.
I ask that the quorum call be vitiated.
Without objection.
Thank you. Mr. President, I come to the floor today to discuss our continued efforts to reverse the Biden administration's regulatory overreach, specifically as it relates to energy. This includes our efforts to work with President Trump to unleash America's full energy potential and truly make our nation energy dominant, not just energy secure, but energy dominant. Energy security is national security, and so it's vitally important for our country. We've worked diligently in the Senate to swiftly confirm President Trump's cabinet officials, and we continue to do that. We made it a priority to ensure that the President's department heads are in place as we work to empower the U.S. to produce more energy from all of its abundant and affordable coal, oil, and gas reserves. Key to this effort was confirming Doug Burgum of North Dakota from my state as Interior Secretary, Chris Wright to be Energy Secretary, Doug Burgum to be Interior Secretary, Chris Wright to be Energy Secretary, and Lee Zeldin to serve as Administrator of the EPA. And we look forward to working with President Trump's newly established National Energy Dominance Council, chaired by Secretary Burgum and vice-chaired by Secretary Wright. We also continue legislative efforts to get our country back to energy dominance. Soon the Senate will vote on my resolution to nullify the Democrats' natural gas tax rule using the Congressional Review Act. We'll be voting on that today. This new tax was mandated by the Democrats in their so-called Inflation Reduction Act. It should have been called the Inflation Acceleration Act. Not only did it increase spending for their Green New Deal, it also put taxes on things like natural gas. No wonder under their watch inflation went up to 9%. And that hits low-income, hardworking Americans the hardest of all. So we're going to change that. Now, this tax, actually puts a fee on emissions from facilities that produce natural gas, starts at $900 a ton, goes up from there, eventually up to $1,500 per ton. So essentially what you're looking at is putting a 5% plus added tax on natural gas. Now think about that. Everybody uses natural gas to heat their homes or to cook their meals and for many other purposes as well. So it's a tax on every consumer, and it's regressive. It hits low-income individuals the hardest. You'll have and this, of course, has a disproportionate effect on small oil and gas producers in states like mine, in North Dakota, Montana, and other states. It hits small businesses the hardest, and, of course, ultimately is paid by consumers. And will impact the energy bill of consumers across the country who, as I said, are already struggling with high inflation because of the Biden administration. Today, the United States is the world's largest oil and gas producer, and at the same time, we've led the world in emission reductions. And here's a stat I'm going to talk about for a minute, and it's important to focus on this, because at the very same time that the Biden administration is putting additional taxes and fees on natural gas, we are reducing emissions from natural gas. So, since 1990, we have reduced emissions from methane by 20%. Now that sounds pretty good, right? 20% reduction in methane emissions since 1990. But think about this. In that same time, we've doubled how much natural gas we produce. So we've doubled the amount of natural gas we produce and still reduced overall emissions by 20%. Remarkable. Remarkable. So the Biden and the Democrats' response to that is, well, gee whiz, let's raise taxes on everybody that uses natural gas. And obviously, not only does that drive up prices, it curtails production, and instead, what we need to do is support the innovation and empower the technology development that have enabled us to reduce emissions while producing more natural gas. That's the answer. That's the solution. That's exactly what President Trump and Republicans have done and will continue to do, and that is an important part of, again, making our country truly energy dominant. We're also working with the Trump administration to replace the Biden administration's rules that closed off access to vast areas of taxpayer-owned energy resources. So that includes both offshore and onshore. For example, in my state, the Bureau of Land Management, BLM's public lands rule essentially enables environmental groups to lock away federal coal, oil, and gas reserves under the argument that they're somehow undertaking conservation. The reality is, in North Dakota, for example, this Biden administration knew what they call their resource management plan closes off leasing to 45% of the federal oil and gas acreage in our state and nearly 99% of federal coal. But it doesn't just end there. When they close off those federal lands from development, they also impact everybody else because federal minerals are often co-located in our state and other states with privately owned minerals under non-federal surface acreage. Their resource management plan prevents other mineral holders and owners, private owners, from exercising their private property rights and limits the ability to develop minerals that are owned by the state, by the tribes, and by private individuals. That's why I'm working with Senator Kramer, Congressman Fedorchak, and Secretary Burgum to overturn the BLM's resource management plan and maximize access to North Dakota's energy resources. And that approach is not just important in my state, it is vital for energy-producing states across the country. This truly is about taking the handcuffs off our energy producers and empowering them to increase supply and help bring down prices for American families and businesses. There is an energy component in every product and service that we consume. And when we make energy more plentiful and bring down that price, that helps reduce inflation. When we bring down energy and make it more plentiful, that helps us grow our economy, create more jobs and opportunities, and in fact, not only provide for national security through energy security, but help our allies as well so that they are not dependent on Russia or on OPEC or on Venezuela or anyone else, any of those bad actors for their energy because they can get it from the United States. All these things go with producing more energy. All those benefits, all those things go with truly making America energy dominant. That's absolutely, with President Trump, that is absolutely what Republicans intend to do. With that, Mr. President, I yield the floor.